I stopped speaking 15 years ago. My family still does not know why. The birthday cake sits untouched on the dining room table, 23 candles flickering like tiny accusations. Mom's hands shake as she cuts the first slice, the same way they've shaken every March 15th for the past 15 years. She's cutting cake for someone who will never eat again, singing happy birthday to empty air, and I watch from the kitchen doorway with my notebook pressed against my chest. Make a wish for Danny, she whispers to the vacant chair decorated with his old baseball cap. Dad stands behind her, his face carved from granite, jaw working like he's chewing words he can't swallow. This is the ritual. Every year, without fail. The birthday celebration for my brother who died when he was 17 and I was 16. The brother whose death broke something inside me so completely that I haven't spoken a single word in 15 years. At least, that's what they think. Dr. Brennan, my latest therapist, number 14 in total, leans forward in his leather chair and asks the same question they all ask. Can you help me understand what happened that day, Marcus? The day you stopped speaking. I pick up my pen and write, asterisk I've already told you. Trauma-induced selective mutism, asterisk. But that's not the truth. The truth is, I stopped speaking on March 22, 2009, at 3:47 p.m., not because I couldn't find words, but because I chose to never give them another one. Not after what I found. The family has spent $347,000 on my condition so far. I know because I found Dad's insurance files last month, the thick manila folder labeled Marcus, Medical, that he keeps locked in his desk drawer. Speech therapists, psychiatrists, neurologists, even a specialist in Boston who claimed he could unlock trapped voices. Dr. Miranda Chin charged $800 an hour and made me squeeze stress balls while humming. Dr. Richardson prescribed pills that made my mouth taste like copper pennies. They've tried everything except the one thing that would actually work, telling me the truth. Mom finds me in the hallway holding my notebook. Her eyes are red-rimmed from crying over Danny's birthday cake, makeup smeared in familiar patterns down her cheeks. Honey, she says, reaching for my hand. Dr. Brennan thinks you might be ready to try group therapy. Other kids who've been through trauma. I write quickly, asterisk I'm 32, Mom. Not a kid, asterisk. She flinches like I've slapped her. You know what I mean. People your age who understand. I hold up my hand and shake my head. The universal gesture for stop, though nothing about this family has ever truly stopped. We're all frozen in March 2009, the month that split our lives into before and after. What she doesn't know is that I practice speaking every day. In my apartment, I read aloud from books, sing along to radio songs, even argue with the TV. My voice works perfectly fine. It's rough from underuse around people, sure, but functional. Sometimes I record myself just to prove I still can. The real silence isn't in my throat. It's in the space between what happened to Danny and what they told everyone happened to Danny. It's in the gap between the truth and the lie they've built our family's entire grief around. But secrets have a way of demanding to be heard eventually. And Danny's birthday isn't the only anniversary coming up. In 7 days, it'll be 15 years since I last spoke. Mom's already planning something special, some big intervention with the whole extended family. She has no idea I'm planning something special too. The intervention planning starts 3 days later. I know because I can hear Mom on the phone with Aunt Sarah at 6:23 a.m., her voice carrying through the thin walls of my childhood bedroom where I'm staying for the week. She thinks I'm asleep. We need everyone there, Sarah. Uncle Jim, Cousin Beth, the Hendersons from next door, everyone who knew Danny. Dar. Brennan says that surrounding Marcus with love and memories might be the key to breakthrough. I press my ear closer to the door, notebook ready. 15 years of silence, can you imagine? My baby hasn't said a word since we lost Danny. Not one word. Sometimes I catch him opening his mouth like he's about to speak, and then. Her voice breaks. Then nothing. Just that awful nothing. If she only knew how many words I swallow every day. How many times I've almost broken, almost screamed the truth right into her grieving face. Yesterday alone, I bit back 43 different sentences. I counted. The Henderson mention makes my stomach clench. Robert Henderson still lives next door, still waves at me with that same guilty smile he's worn for 15 years. He was Danny's English teacher. He knew everything that was happening to my brother in his classroom, the way Tommy Vega would accidentally knock Danny's books off his desk, how the Brennan twins, no relation to my therapist, different spelling, would stuff notebook paper in Danny's backpack with messages I won't repeat. But Henderson never reported it, never called home, never did anything but look the other way. Just like Mom and Dad did when Danny came home with torn clothes and bruised knuckles. Boys will be boys, Dad used to say. Danny needs to learn to stand up for himself. It's just a phase, Mom would add. High school is hard for everyone. They had no idea Danny was standing up for himself in the only way he knew how. I found his journal 2 weeks after the funeral, hidden behind his bedroom radiator in a plastic bag. 47 pages of meticulous documentation. Names, dates, incidents. A timeline of torture that my parents dismissed as typical teenage drama whenever Danny tried to tell them. The journal that changed everything for me. The journal that stole my voice. But they don't know I have it. I hear Mom hang up the phone and pad downstairs to start coffee. The intervention is scheduled for Saturday at 2 p.m. A celebration of Marcus finding his voice again, she told Aunt Sarah. They've rented the community center, hired a caterer, even ordered a cake that says, "Welcome back," in blue frosting. What they don't know is that I've been planning my own celebration. In my apartment downtown, I have a box hidden under my floorboards. Danny's journal sits on top, but underneath are 15 years of documentation of my own. Every doctor's visit they forced on me. Every lie they told about Danny's last months. Every time they changed the story about what really happened to him. The official story, the one they tell everyone, Danny lost control of his bike on Miller's Hill, hit a tree at high speed. Tragic accident. Could have happened to anyone. Bad luck in physics. The real story is written in Danny's careful handwriting, dated March 21, 2009, asterisk I can't do this anymore. They won't stop and mom and dad won't listen and I just want it all to be quiet finally, asterisk. I found that journal on March 22nd. Stopped speaking 12 minutes later. The intervention is in 4 days. They're expecting a miracle. They're going to get one, just not the kind they've been praying for. The florist calls at 9:15 a.m. Thursday morning to confirm the arrangement order. 23 white roses for Danny's memorial corner at the intervention, plus a special centerpiece spelling out, hope, in yellow chrysanthemums. I'm sitting at the kitchen table when mom takes the call, watching her face light up with the kind of desperate optimism I've seen her wear like armor for 15 years. Yes, that's perfect, she tells the florist. This is a very special day for our family. A healing day. She doesn't know that I called Henderson yesterday. Wrote him a letter, actually, and had it hand-delivered by a courier service. One line, asterisk I need to see Danny's school records. All of them. Saturday at 1:30 p.m., 1 hour before the intervention, asterisk. Henderson called back within 3 hours. His voice on mom's answering machine was shaky, older than I remembered. Marcus. Yes. I'll bring everything. It's time, isn't it? After all these years, it's finally time. Even through the machine's tinny speaker, I could hear 15 years of guilt cracking his voice like old paint. The records request wasn't my only call. I also contacted the Riverside Journal, the local paper that covered Danny's accident back in 2009. Asked them to send a reporter to the community center at 3 p.m. Saturday for a major announcement regarding the Henderson family tragedy. The journalism student who answered the phone, Jenny Martinez, according to her voicemail, sounded hungry for a story. Any additional details you can provide, Mr. Henderson, she'd asked. I wrote back, 15 years of lies are enough. Dad finds me in Danny's room Thursday afternoon. I'm sitting on the bed, running my fingers over the baseball trophies lined up on the dresser like tiny monuments. Everything exactly as Danny left it, down to the Sports Illustrated subscription that Mom still renews every year. Hey, buddy, Dad says, settling into Danny's desk chair. The same chair where Danny used to do homework while Tommy Vega's crew texted him pictures of nooses. Big day coming up, huh? I nod and reach for my notebook. Are you nervous? Me? Nah. Well, maybe a little. He picks up Danny's old baseball, tosses it from hand to hand. Dr. Brennan says there's a 63% success rate with this type of intervention. Those are pretty good odds. Dr. Brennan has no idea what he's dealing with. None of them do. Dad's voice drops lower. You know what I keep thinking about? That last week with Danny. How quiet he got right before the accident. Just like you did, actually. Maybe if I'd paid more attention to the signs. This is the closest Dad has ever come to acknowledging that something was wrong before Danny died. For 15 years, they've maintained the fiction that everything was fine until that bike hit the tree. Perfect family, tragic accident, no warning signs. But I remember that last week differently. I remember Danny asking Mom if he could transfer schools. I remember Dad telling him to toughen up and finish what you started. I remember the sound of Danny crying through our shared wall at night, and how it stopped so suddenly on March 20th that I should have known something was wrong. I write, what signs do you think you missed? Dad stares at the baseball for a long moment. Just, you know. Teenage stuff. Drama with friends, trouble at school. Normal growing pains. Normal. Well, maybe normal's the wrong word. But not anything we couldn't have handled if we'd just. He trails off, sets the baseball down carefully between two trophies. Dr. Brennan says guilt is part of the healing process. For all of us. I flip to a fresh page. What do you feel guilty about? The question hangs in the air like dust motes. Dad's jaw works the same way it did at Danny's birthday ritual, chewing words that taste too bitter to swallow. Everything, he finally whispers. Absolutely everything. 2 more days until the intervention. 2 more days until they learn that guilt and truth aren't the same thing at all. Friday arrives with the weight of 16 years pressing against my chest. 1 day until the intervention, and Mom has transformed into a woman possessed. She's been awake since 4:30 a.m., reorganizing the community center seating chart for the 8th time, calling caterers to confirm appetizer counts, and practicing what Dr. Brennan calls her breakthrough speech. I hear her rehearsing in the bathroom mirror, Marcus, sweetheart, we love you so much. We just want to help you find your voice again. If only she knew I never lost it. The mail arrives at 11:47 a.m. with an envelope that makes my hands shake. Henderson's return address, thick manila paper, contents that crinkle like old secrets. Inside, photocopies of Danny's school records, detention slips, incident reports, and 3 letters that were never sent home. Letters requesting parent conferences about ongoing behavioral concerns. Letters about Danny's declining grades and increased absences. Letters that Mom and Dad never received because Henderson was too afraid to send them. The cover note is handwritten on school letterhead, asterisk Marcus, I should have done something. Anything. Your parents were never told about the severity of the situation because I thought I could handle it internally. I was wrong about everything. Robert Henderson asterisk. Attached to his note is a disciplinary report dated March 18, 2009. 3 days before Danny's final journal entry. Tommy Vega and his friends had cornered Danny in the locker room after PE, held his head in a toilet while the entire basketball team watched. Danny reported it to Henderson, who gave Tommy 2 days of detention and told Danny to try staying out of their way. No phone call home. No meeting with parents. No real consequences. 2 days of detention for torture. I'm reading this when Mom appears in the doorway, her face glowing with the kind of manic energy that comes from 15 years of desperate hope finally having a target. Honey, what's that? She asks, reaching for the papers. I pull them against my chest and shake my head. Marcus, you know we don't keep secrets in this family. The irony of this statement is so perfect it could be comedy. Dr. Brennan says that hidden information can be traumatic triggers. I write quickly, asterisk just old school stuff. Nothing important, asterisk. But my hands are shaking, and she notices. Mom has developed supernatural powers over the years, the kind that come from watching your child's every micro-expression for signs of breakthrough. Is that from Danny's school? Her voice changes, becomes careful. Because Dr. Brennan thinks that revisiting Danny's last few months might help you process. I stand up abruptly, clutching Henderson's envelope, and head for the door. But Mom's faster than I expect, and she grabs my arm. Please, baby. Tomorrow's so important. If there's something bothering you about Danny, something you remember from back then. The word remember hits like a physical blow. As if I could ever forget. As if the last 15 years have been about forgetting instead of carrying every single detail like stones in my chest. I write with shaking letters, you don't want to know what I remember. Yes, I do. Mom's grip tightens on my arm. I want to know everything. Every memory, every thought, every reason you stopped talking. Dr. Brennan says that trauma loses its power when we drag it into the light. She has no idea how right she is. I look at her face, earnest, desperate, lined with 15 years of guilt and sleepless nights and medical bills and false hope. Tomorrow she's expecting to hear my voice for the first time since I was 17. She's going to hear it, all right. But the first words I speak are going to destroy everything she thinks she knows about our family. 22 hours until the intervention. The call comes at 6:23 a.m. Saturday morning, 4 hours before Henderson's scheduled meeting, 8 hours before the intervention that's supposed to give me back my voice. Mr. Henderson. The voice on Mom's answering machine is young, professional. This is Jenny Martinez from the Riverside Journal. I wanted to confirm our 3 p.m. appointment today and ask if you'd be willing to go on record about the Henderson family situation from 2009. We've done some preliminary research and found some discrepancies in the original accident report that. Mom lunges for the phone, but the message cuts off. She stands there in her bathrobe, staring at the machine like it might explode. Marcus. Her voice is barely a whisper. What is this about? I'm sitting at the kitchen table with my notebook, watching her face cycle through confusion, fear, and something that looks almost like recognition. For 15 years, she's been waiting for the other shoe to drop. Today, she's finally hearing it fall. I write, someone's finally asking the right questions. What questions? About Danny's accident? She sinks into the chair across from me, her hands already starting that familiar shake. There's nothing to question. The police report was very clear. I flip to a fresh page, police reports can be wrong. The words hit her like a slap. Dad appears in the doorway, drawn by the sound of the answering machine and Mom's panicked whispers. What's going on? Who called? A reporter. Mom's voice cracks on the word. Asking about Danny. About discrepancies. Dad goes very still. It's the same stillness I've seen in him for 15 years whenever anyone mentions the actual details of Danny's death. Not the sanitized version they tell at family gatherings, but the real timeline. The hospital calls. The questions that never got answered. What kind of discrepancies, he asks, too carefully. I write, the kind you've been avoiding for 15 years. Marcus, what are you talking about? Dad's voice has an edge now, the tone he used to use when Danny came home with torn shirts and wouldn't explain what happened. Your brother died in an accident. A terrible, tragic accident that we've all had to live with. I reach into my backpack and pull out Henderson's envelope. The school records, the incident reports, the letters that were never sent home. I spread them across the kitchen table like evidence in a trial. Mom's hands fly to her mouth. Where did you get these? Asterisk Henderson gave them to me. All the things he should have told you while Danny was still alive, asterisk. Dad leans forward, scanning the detention slips and disciplinary reports. His face goes white when he reaches the locker room incident from March 18th. 3 days before Danny's final journal entry. 3 days before everything ended. This can't be right, Dad whispers. We were never told about any of this. Asterisk because Henderson was too much of a coward to call you. Just like you were too much of a coward to listen when Danny tried to tell you himself, asterisk. Danny never told us anything like this, Mom says, but her voice wavers. I can see her remembering those last few weeks, the torn clothes and bruised knuckles they dismissed as normal teenage roughhousing. I pull out my phone and scroll to a recording app. For 15 years, they've wanted to hear my voice. They've spent fortunes trying to unlock it, brought in specialists from 3 states, turned our family into a medical case study. I press record and place the phone in the center of the table, right next to Henderson's evidence. The intervention starts in 6 hours, I say, and my voice is rusty from disuse but perfectly clear. But I think we should have our family meeting right now. Mom screams. Dad drops his coffee mug, and it shatters against the kitchen tiles like our family is about to shatter in the next 30 minutes. 15 years, I continue, my voice getting stronger with each word. 15 years you've wondered why I stopped talking. Today, you're finally going to understand. Mom's scream echoes off the kitchen walls for exactly 4 seconds before she clamps both hands over her mouth. Dad hasn't moved since my coffee mug hit the floor, he's frozen halfway between sitting and standing, his face cycling through shock, relief, and terror in rapid succession. Your voice, Mom whispers through her fingers. Oh my God, Marcus, your voice. Works perfectly fine, I say, testing each word like I'm tuning an instrument. Always has. I've been practicing every day for 15 years, waiting for the right moment to use it again. Dad finally sinks back into his chair, his eyes locked on the school records scattered across the table. Why now? After all this time, why are you talking now? I reach into my backpack and pull out the item I've been saving for this moment. Danny's journal, wrapped in the same plastic bag where I found it behind his bedroom radiator in March 2009. The blue composition notebook he bought at CVS for $2.47, according to the receipt still tucked inside the front cover. Mom recognizes it immediately. Her face goes paper white. That's Danny's. We looked everywhere for that after he. She can't finish the sentence, even now. After he what, Mom? My voice is steady, calm. 15 years of silence have taught me patience. Go ahead. Say the words you've been avoiding. After the accident. Dad's voice is barely audible. After Danny's bike accident on Miller's Hill. I opened the journal to March 21st, 2009. Danny's final entry. Would you like me to read what really happened that day? Because Danny wrote it all down. Every single detail. Marcus, please. Mom reaches across the table toward the journal, but I pull it back. We don't need to relive. March 15th, I read aloud. Danny's birthday. The last birthday he ever had. Tommy and his friends followed me home from school today. They threw eggs at the house while Mom was at work. When I told Dad, he said I probably provoked them somehow. Asked what I did to make them mad. Like it's my fault they hate me for existing. Dad flinches like I've hit him. March 18th, Coach Henderson saw what happened in the locker room. Saw Tommy hold my head under the water while everyone laughed. Gave Tommy 2 days detention and told me to try avoiding them. 2 days. For torture. I asked if he was going to call Mom and Dad, and he said he didn't want to worry them over typical teenage conflicts. Stop, Mom whispers. Please stop. March 19th, asked Mom again if I could transfer schools. She said we don't run away from our problems in this family. Said high school builds character and I need to toughen up. Dad agreed. They both agreed that I should just ignore the bullying and it would go away. I look up from the journal. Both my parents are crying now, but I've waited 15 years to read these words aloud. I'm not stopping. March 20th, tried one last time to make them understand. Showed Dad the bruises on my ribs from when they cornered me in the bathroom. He said boys roughhouse sometimes and asked if I'd been fighting back. When I said no, he looked disappointed. Like I was failing some test of masculinity he needed me to pass. The kitchen has gone completely silent except for Mom's quiet sobbing. March 21st, I continue. The final entry. I close the journal and look directly at both of them. Would you like me to read Danny's last words, or would you prefer to keep pretending he died in a bike accident? Dad's hands are shaking now. Marcus, we loved Danny. We loved him so much. But you didn't listen to him, I say. And that's why I stopped talking to you. You want to know what Danny's last words were? I ask, my voice cutting through Mom's sobs. March 21st, 2009, 11:47 p.m. I'm going to ride my bike to the top of Miller's Hill tomorrow morning and I'm not going to use the brakes coming down. Maybe then they'll finally understand that words have consequences. That ignoring your kid when he's drowning has consequences. Dad's face crumbles. No. No, Danny wouldn't have. Planned it. I flipped through the journal's pages. He wrote about it for 3 weeks. Drew diagrams of the hill, calculated speeds, even picked out the tree he was going to hit. Page 43 has a detailed map of his route. Page 45 has his goodbye letters, the ones you never found because I took them. Mom's crying stops abruptly. You have his goodbye letters. I reach back into my backpack and pull out 3 sealed envelopes. White business envelopes from Dad's home office, addressed in Danny's careful handwriting. One for Mom, one for Dad, one for me. All unopened except mine. I found these taped under his desk drawer 2 hours after the funeral. Read mine that same day. Saved yours for when I thought you were ready to hear the truth. Dad stares at his name written in Danny's handwriting. What does it say? Read it yourself. I slide his envelope across the table. But I'll give you a preview. Danny didn't blame you for not knowing. He blamed you for not caring enough to find out. Mom's hands hover over her envelope like it might catch fire. Marcus, I don't think I can. You've spent 15 years and $300,000 trying to fix me, I say. The least you can do is read what broke me. The kitchen clock ticks to 7:15 a.m. Henderson will be here in 6 hours with the official school records. The intervention starts at 2 p.m., with 23 family members expecting to witness my miraculous recovery. The reporter from Riverside Journal arrives at 3 p.m., ready to ask questions about discrepancies in a 15-year-old death certificate. Dad opens his envelope with shaking fingers. Inside is a single sheet of notebook paper covered in Danny's neat handwriting. He reads silently, his face growing paler with each line. Finally, he looks up. He says he tried to tell us 12 different times about what was happening at school. Lists every conversation, every time we dismissed his concerns. What else does it say? Mom whispers. That he loved us but couldn't live with disappointing us anymore. That he was tired of being called weak for not fighting back, tired of being told to toughen up when what he needed was for someone to make it stop. Dad's voice breaks completely. He says he hopes his death will teach us to listen to the next kid who asks for help. Mom finally opens her envelope. Her letter is longer, 3 pages of Danny's careful explanations about why their advice didn't work, why ignoring bullies made things worse, why transferring schools wasn't running away but survival. The final paragraph, which she reads aloud through tears, is Danny telling her that her last words to him were, "Stop being so dramatic about normal teenage problems." I said that, Mom whispers. March 21st, right before dinner. Those were the last words I ever spoke to my son. And 2 days later, I stopped speaking to you, I say. Because I realized that if you couldn't hear Danny when he was screaming for help, you'd never hear anything true from me again. The phone rings at 7:43 a.m. Henderson's voice on the machine sounds terrified. Marcus, the reporter, called me directly. She has questions about the original police investigation. About why Danny's injuries weren't consistent with a bike accident. We need to talk before. I pick up the phone. Mr. Henderson. This is Marcus. We're ready for that conversation now. Henderson arrives at 8:32 a.m., 47 minutes early and carrying a banker's box that looks like it weighs more than secrets should. Through the kitchen window, I watch him sit in his car for 6 full minutes, gripping the steering wheel like it's the only thing keeping him upright. When he finally knocks, Dad answers with Danny's goodbye letter still clutched in his hand. Robert. Dad's voice is hollow. Marcus is talking again. Henderson's face crumples with relief and terror in equal measure. Thank God. I've been carrying this guilt for 15 years, wondering if I'd done things differently. Come in, I say from the kitchen doorway. We need to see everything. The banker's box contains 15 years of evidence that Henderson never had the courage to share. Not just Danny's school records, but photographs of his injuries that the school nurse documented and never reported. Statements from other students who witnessed the escalating violence. Even security camera footage from the hallway outside the locker room, burned onto 3 DVDs with dates and timestamps. Mom stares at a photo of Danny's bruised ribs from March 19th, the same bruises Dad dismissed as normal roughhousing. The school nurse took pictures. District policy for any injury requiring medical attention, Henderson explains, his hands shaking as he sorts through files. Mrs. Patterson wanted to file a formal report with Child Services, but I overruled her. Told her I'd handle it internally. Internally, Dad repeats the word like it tastes bitter. You mean you did nothing? I gave Tommy Vega detention. Spoke to his parents twice. They claimed their son was just standing up to Danny's aggressive behavior. Henderson pulls out a folder marked Vega, Thomas, disciplinary. The Vega family threatened to sue the school district if we suspended Tommy without concrete evidence of wrongdoing. I flipped through Tommy's file. 12 separate incidents involving Danny, documented but never escalated. A pattern of systematic torture that Henderson treated like a minor behavioral issue. There's more, Henderson says quietly. He pulls out a manila envelope marked Confidential, Police Communications. Detective Morrison had questions about Danny's final trajectory. The physics didn't match a simple loss of control. Mom goes very still. What kind of questions? Speed calculations. The angle of impact. Danny would have had to accelerate down Miller's Hill, not brake. Henderson's voice drops to a whisper. Detective Morrison suspected intentional action, but the family requested no further investigation. Dad and Mom exchange a look I can't decipher. Something passes between them, some piece of knowledge they've never shared. We knew, Dad says finally. Not about the extent of the bullying, but about Danny's intentions that morning. My blood turns to ice water. You knew. He left a note on the kitchen counter, Mom whispers. Just 3 words, make it stop. We found it after the hospital called, after we knew he was gone. Detective Morrison asked if we wanted a full investigation, and we. You covered it up, I say, understanding flooding through me like poison. You knew Danny chose to die, and you told everyone it was an accident. We couldn't bear the stigma, Dad's voice breaks. Couldn't handle people knowing we'd failed him so completely. The insurance money, the sympathy, the way people treated us like victims instead of the parents who ignored their son's cries for help until he saw death as his only option, I finish. Henderson clears his throat. There's something else. The reporter, Jenny Martinez. She's not just investigating Danny's death. She's working on a larger story about bullying cover-ups in the district. 3 other families have come forward with similar situations from the past decade. The kitchen clock reads 9:47 a.m. 4 hours until the intervention where 23 family members expect to celebrate my miraculous recovery. 1 hour until more reporters arrive, asking questions that will unravel 15 years of carefully constructed lies. What do you want to do? Henderson asks. I can call off the reporter, tell her the family needs privacy. No, I say, my voice stronger than it's been in 15 years. Danny's been silent long enough. Today, everyone gets to hear the truth. The intervention setup begins at 11:30 a.m., and I watch from Danny's bedroom window as Mom's sister Sarah directs the catering truck in the community center parking lot. 23 family members will arrive in 2.5 hours, expecting to witness my miraculous breakthrough. Instead, they're going to learn that miracles and truth are 2 very different things. Henderson left an hour ago with a promise to return at 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the intervention begins. Give them time to process, he'd said, clutching the empty banker's box. Some truths need space to breathe before they can be spoken aloud. But breathing room is a luxury we no longer have. Jenny Martinez called back at 10:15 a.m., this time reaching Mom directly. I listened from the hallway as Mom's voice grew smaller with each question. Mrs. Henderson, our investigation has uncovered inconsistencies in your son Daniel's death certificate. The coroner's report mentions impact patterns that don't align with accidental collision. We'd like to ask you about. Mom hung up mid-sentence, but the damage was already done. 3 other reporters have called since then, each one armed with fragments of information that Henderson's confessions have scattered like seeds across the county. Dad finds me in Danny's room at noon, exactly 2 hours before the intervention. He's holding Mom's unopened letter from Danny. She still hasn't found the courage to read all 3 pages. Your mother's having a panic attack, he says, settling into Danny's desk chair. Dr. Brennan is on his way over with sedatives. Perfect, nothing says, family healing, like drugging the grief-stricken mother before a public intervention. Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Dad's voice carries a weight I've never heard before. How long have you been planning this? The reporter, the records, breaking your silence today, how long have you been orchestrating our destruction? The question surprises me with its directness. For 15 years, Dad has avoided difficult conversations like they carry infectious diseases. Today, apparently, is the day for uncomfortable truths. Since the day I found Danny's journal, I answer. March 22, 2009, at 3:47 p.m. The moment I realized you'd rather live with comfortable lies than difficult realities. And you've been punishing us ever since. It's not a question, so I don't bother answering. Instead, I pull out my phone and show him a folder labeled Documentation. 15 years of screenshots, recorded conversations, medical bills, and therapy session notes. Every doctor's appointment they dragged me to, every treatment they forced on me, every desperate attempt to fix what they thought was wrong with me. $347,000, I say. That's what you've spent trying to cure a condition that never existed. While Danny's real killers, Tommy Vega, the Brennan twins, everyone who tortured him, graduated high school and moved on with their lives. Dad scrolls through the files on my phone, his face growing paler with each entry. You recorded Dr. Chen's sessions. Dr. Richardson's medication consultations. Every single one. Did you know that Dr. Richardson suspected I was faking my mutism within the first 3 appointments? It's all in his notes he never shared with you because you were paying him $800 an hour to validate your theory that I was traumatized, not angry. The community center parking lot is filling up now. I can see Uncle Jim's red pickup truck, Cousin Beth's Honda Civic, the Hendersons' ancient station wagon. 23 people who think they're coming to celebrate a medical breakthrough. Dad hands back my phone. What happens at 2 p.m., Marcus? When everyone's gathered in that room, expecting to hear your first words in 15 years. They'll hear my first words, I say. Just not the words they're expecting. From downstairs comes the sound of Dr. Brennan's voice, low and soothing, probably explaining to Mom why sedatives might not be the best idea before a breakthrough intervention. Too late, I can already hear the slurred edges in her responses. The reporter arrives at 3 p.m., I continue. 1 hour after everyone learns the truth about Danny. 1 hour after they understand that his death wasn't a tragic accident but the predictable result of systematic neglect. Dad's hands shake as he processes the timeline. You're going to destroy our entire family in front of everyone we know. No, I say, walking to Danny's window and looking down at the community center where balloons spell out, "Welcome home, Marcus," in cheerful primary colors. I'm going to let Danny destroy it himself. His words, his truth, his story that you've been silencing for 15 years. And after that? After you've burned everything down. I turn back to face him, this man who taught me that love without listening is just elaborate cruelty. After that, Danny can finally rest. And maybe, for the first time in 15 years, our family can start dealing with reality instead of managing grief. The clock on Danny's nightstand reads 12:47 p.m. 1 hour and 13 minutes until the intervention begins. 1 hour and 13 minutes until everything changes forever. The first family members start arriving at 1:15 p.m., 45 minutes early. Through Danny's window, I watch Aunt Sarah directing traffic in the community center parking lot like she's orchestrating a military operation. Uncle Jim carries a massive flower arrangement, white roses and baby's breath, the kind they use at funerals. Cousin Beth has brought her 3 kids, ages 7 through 12, because apparently they thought this would be a celebration suitable for children. They have no idea they're about to witness the dismantling of everything they believe about our family. Dr. Brennan finds me in Danny's room at 1:23 p.m., his usually confident demeanor replaced by something that looks suspiciously like panic. Mom's sedatives have left her slurring her words downstairs, and Dad hasn't stopped pacing since Henderson's revelations this morning. Marcus, Dr. Brennan says, settling into Danny's desk chair with the careful movements of someone trying not to spook a wild animal. Your parents have filled me in on today's developments. I think we should postpone the intervention until we've had time to process these new revelations about your brother. I write in my notebook, why? Isn't breakthrough the goal, Well, yes, but context matters. The emotional framework we've built for your recovery was based on certain assumptions about the nature of your trauma. If those assumptions were incorrect. I flip to a fresh page. You mean if you've been treating the wrong patient for 15 years? Dr. Brennan's professional mask slips for just a moment. Marcus, selective mutism following sibling loss is a recognized condition. Your symptoms were entirely consistent with. Were they? I ask aloud, and he nearly falls out of Danny's chair. Or did you see what you expected to see because my parents paid you to validate their version of events? His face goes white. In all our sessions, he's never heard me speak. Never heard the voice that works perfectly fine when I choose to use it. Your voice, he whispers. You can speak normally. Always could. I chose not to. I pull out my phone and show him the recording app I've been running since he walked in. This conversation is being documented, by the way. Along with every session we've ever had. Dar. Brennan stares at the phone like it might bite him. Marcus, patient confidentiality laws. Don't apply when the patient is the one doing the recording. I scroll through 15 months of session files. Did you know that insurance fraud carries criminal penalties? Especially when it involves intentional misdiagnosis for financial gain. I never misdiagnosed. Really? Because your notes from our 3rd session indicate you suspected I was voluntarily mute but continued treating me for trauma-induced mutism anyway. $800 per hour for 14 months, Dr. Brennan. That's $44,800 for treating a condition you knew didn't exist. Through the window, more cars arrive. The Hendersons from next door, clutching a banner that reads, "Find your voice," in glittery letters. Mom's college roommate drove up from Portland, carrying what looks like a gift basket full of throat lozenges and herbal tea. Dr. Brennan's hands shake as he scrolls through my documentation. What do you want, Marcus? The same thing I've wanted for 15 years. For people to stop pretending they know what's wrong with me and start listening to what I'm actually trying to tell them. A knock at Danny's bedroom door interrupts us. Dad's voice carries through the wood, Marcus. Henderson's here. And there are 3 news vans in the parking lot. I check the time on my phone, 1:34 p.m. 26 minutes until the intervention begins, and the media circus is starting early. Jenny Martinez kept her word about investigating the story, but apparently she brought backup. Dr. Brennan stands up shakily. Marcus, please. Think about what you're doing. Your family has suffered enough. Have they? I ask, walking to Danny's dresser and picking up his final baseball trophy. Regional champions, spring 2009, just weeks before everything ended. Because from where I'm sitting, they've spent 15 years avoiding suffering. Avoiding truth. Avoiding the reality that their son asked for help 12 different times before he decided death was his only option. But destroying them publicly won't bring Danny back. I set down the trophy and look Dr. Brennan directly in the eyes. No. But it might save the next kid whose parents think love means dismissing their pain as teenage drama. Another knock, more urgent this time. Marcus, we need to go. The reporters are asking questions about Danny, and Mom's in no condition to. Coming, Dad, I call out, my voice carrying clearly through the door. The silence that follows lasts exactly 4 seconds before Dad's footsteps retreat rapidly down the hallway. Dr. Brennan stares at me with something between professional fascination and personal horror. How long have you been planning this? 15 years, 2 months, and 18 days, I answer, checking my phone one last time. Ever since I realized that sometimes the only way to make people listen is to give them no other choice. The community center lobby buzzes with nervous energy when we arrive at 1:52 p.m. 23 family members mill around the reception table, loading paper plates with miniature sandwiches and discussing my miraculous breakthrough in hushed, excited tones. The banner reading, "Find your voice, Marcus," hangs above the main entrance like a cruel joke. Mom leans heavily on Dad's arm, the sedatives making her movements loose and unpredictable. Aunt Sarah rushes over immediately, her face bright with 15 years of accumulated hope. "Marcus, honey." She pulls me into a suffocating hug that smells like perfume and desperation. "We're so proud of you for taking this step. Dr. Brennan says today could change everything." If only she knew how right she is. Uncle Jim approaches with his signature awkward shoulder pat. "Ready to join the conversation again, kiddo? We've missed hearing from you all these years." I pull out my notebook and write, "You're going to hear plenty from me today." He chuckles, completely missing the warning in my words. "That's the spirit. Your mom says you might even say a few words during the ceremony." Through the lobby windows, I can see the news vans multiplying in the parking lot. Channel 7, Channel 12, and what looks like a CNN affiliate truck. Jenny Martinez wasn't kidding about this being a bigger story than just our family's tragedy. Henderson appears at my elbow, his face gray with anxiety. "Marcus, we have a problem. Tommy Vega is here." The words hit like ice water in my veins. I scan the crowd and spot him immediately, older, heavier, wearing a cheap suit and the same smirk he perfected in high school. He's talking to Cousin Beth near the refreshment table, probably spinning some story about how he and Danny were good friends, who had their differences sometimes. Why is he here? I ask, my first spoken words in the community center carrying clearly across the lobby. Conversations stop. Heads turn. Mom's sedated smile becomes radiant with pharmaceutical joy. "You spoke," she slurs, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Oh my God, everyone," Marcus spoke. A ripple of excitement moves through the crowd. Camera phones appear, relatives start applauding, and Dr. Brennan moves toward me with his professional smile firmly in place. But I'm still staring at Tommy Vega, who has turned at the sound of my voice with an expression of mild curiosity. 15 years, and he doesn't even remember what he did to Danny. To him, my brother was just another kid he tormented for entertainment. Marcus asked why someone is here, Henderson says quietly, understanding immediately. "Tommy's mother is your Aunt Sarah's neighbor." She thought this was a general family celebration and invited him along. The irony is so perfect it could be scripted. Danny's primary tormentor, attending the intervention meant to celebrate my recovery from the trauma his actions caused. Tommy approaches our little group, extending his hand like we're meeting at a business conference. "Marcus Henderson, right? I'm Tommy Vega. I went to school with your brother Danny. Terrible thing, that accident. Really shook up our whole class." He stands there with his hand outstretched, waiting for me to shake it. This man who held my brother's head underwater while 30 other kids watched. Who spent 2 years systematically destroying Danny's will to live. Who served 2 days of detention for torture and learned nothing from it. The crowd watches expectantly. Mom beams through her sedative haze. Dr. Brennan nods encouragingly, probably thinking this social interaction represents therapeutic progress. Instead, I pull out my phone, open the recording app, and press the volume button all the way up. March 18, 2009, Danny's voice fills the lobby, reading from his journal entry. "Tommy and his friends held my head in the toilet water for 37 seconds while Coach Henderson watched from his office window and did nothing." Tommy's hand drops to his side. His face goes white. The community center falls completely silent except for my dead brother's voice, finally speaking his truth after 15 years of forced quiet. The recording of Danny's voice cuts through the community center like a blade through silk. 23 family members freeze with sandwiches halfway to their mouths, their celebratory chatter dying in their throats as my dead brother's words echo off the walls. "Tommy Vega held my head under the sink in the locker room today," Danny's voice continues, tinny but clear through my phone speaker. "Mrs. Patterson, the school nurse, saw the bruises on my neck afterward. She wanted to call Mom and Dad, but Mr. Henderson told her not to worry our parents over, typical teenage roughhousing." Tommy backs away from me like I'm holding a live grenade. His face has gone from confident reunion small talk to pure panic in the span of 10 seconds. "Marcus, I don't know what kind of sick joke this is, but..." "It's not a joke," I say, my voice carrying clearly across the silent lobby. "It's evidence." Mom's sedated smile falters as she processes what she's hearing. "Marcus, honey, where did you get a recording of Danny's voice?" "He kept audio journals," I lie smoothly, though my hands shake as I hold the phone. The truth, that I've been recording myself reading Danny's written entries in his voice for the past month, would complicate things unnecessarily. Hidden files I found on his old computer. 47 entries documenting 3 years of systematic harassment. Dr. Brennan moves toward me with his practiced crisis intervention posture. "Marcus, this isn't the appropriate venue for..." "Isn't it?" I turn to face the crowd of relatives who've spent 15 years mourning Danny's tragic accident. "You all came here to celebrate my breakthrough, to finally understand why I stopped talking. This is why." I press play on the next file. Danny's voice fills the room again, March 20th, 2009. "Told Dad about the messages Tommy's friends have been leaving in my locker. Pictures of nooses with my name written underneath. Dad said I should ignore them and they'll get bored. Asked me if I've been doing anything to encourage their attention." Uncle Jim's face crumples. He was there for that conversation, nodding along when Dad suggested Danny was somehow provoking his tormentors. I remember because I was eavesdropping from the kitchen, watching my family dismiss my brother's pleas for help as attention-seeking behavior. Tommy tries to leave, pushing through the crowd toward the exit, but Henderson blocks his path. "I think you should stay, Tom. Hear what Danny had to say about our response to his situation. This is harassment," Tommy snarls, his high school bully persona bleeding through his adult businessman facade. "Playing fake recordings of a dead kid to make some kind of point. Fake." I scroll through my phone to a video file I've been saving for exactly this moment. Danny didn't just keep audio journals, Tommy. He recorded video too. The lobby screen, set up to display photos from my recovery journey, suddenly shows grainy cell phone footage dated March 18, 2009. Danny's face, bruised and tear-streaked, speaking directly into his camera. If something happens to me, video Danny says, I want people to know it wasn't an accident. Tommy Vega and his friends have been threatening to finish what they started since freshman year. Today they prove they meant it. The video shows Danny lifting his shirt to reveal finger-shaped bruises around his ribs, purple-black marks that look like they were made by someone holding him down with considerable force. Jesus Christ, Cousin Beth whispers, covering her 7-year-old daughter's eyes. Marcus, why didn't anyone know about this? Because Henderson never sent the incident reports home, I answer, pulling out the manila envelope of school documents. Because Mom and Dad were told Danny was going through typical teenage drama. Because everyone decided it was easier to ignore the problem than address it. Tommy makes another attempt at escape, but now he's blocked by a crowd of relatives who are starting to understand the implications of what they're seeing. Aunt Sarah grabs his arm with surprising strength for a 70-year-old woman. You did this? She demands, her voice shaking with rage. You hurt our Danny. It was 15 years ago, Tommy stammers. We were kids. Everyone picked on everyone back then. Everyone didn't drive their classmates to desperate measures, I say, switching off the video. Everyone didn't systematically torture someone for 3 years while the adults in charge looked the other way. Through the lobby windows, I can see Jenny Martinez and her camera crew approaching the entrance. Perfect timing, just as our family's darkest secrets are finally crawling into the light. The intervention Dr. Brennan planned to celebrate my miraculous recovery is about to become something entirely different. Something Danny would have been proud to see. The lobby doors burst open at 2:03 p.m., and Jenny Martinez strides in with her camera crew like she owns the place. The timing couldn't be more perfect. 23 shell-shocked relatives, Tommy Vega trapped in a corner looking like he's about to vomit, and Danny's voice still echoing off the walls through my phone speaker. Mr. Henderson. Jenny's voice cuts through the chaos. Jenny Martinez, Riverside Journal. We spoke about the discrepancies in your brother's death investigation. Mom's sedated brain struggles to process this new development. Marcus, why is there a reporter here? Because, I say, walking to the center of the lobby so everyone can hear me clearly, Danny's story doesn't end with our family. 3 other students from Henderson's school died in accidents between 2010 and 2018. All of them were documented bullying victims. All of them had their cases handled internally by the administration. Henderson's face goes ashen. Marcus, you don't understand the legal ramifications. I understand perfectly. I pull out a thick folder I've been carrying in my backpack. Melissa Chen, junior year 2012, fell down the main staircase after Tommy's younger brother and his friends cornered her about her race. Kevin Morrison, sophomore year 2015, accidentally drove into Miller's Pond after months of harassment about his family's financial situation. Sarah Beth Williams, senior year 2018, overdosed on her mother's prescription medication after intimate photos were circulated by the same group that targeted Danny. Jenny Martinez's eyes light up like Christmas morning. You have documentation of these cases? Hospital records, police reports, school disciplinary files that were never properly investigated. I hand her the folder. Henderson gave me access to 15 years of covered-up incidents yesterday morning. Tommy pushes through the crowd toward the exit, but Uncle Jim, all 6'4" of him, steps into his path. Where do you think you're going, son? This is insane, Tommy sputters. You can't ambush someone with accusations from 15 years ago based on some recordings that could be faked. Could they? I walk over to the laptop connected to the lobby's projection screen. Because I have something else Danny left behind. Something I've been saving for exactly this moment. The screen flickers to life, showing Danny's desktop from March 21, 2009. His final night alive. A folder labeled Evidence contains 127 files, photos, videos, audio recordings, and scanned documents. A complete archive of 3 years of systematic torture. Danny wasn't just keeping a journal, I announced to the room. He was building a case. He knew that if something happened to him, he'd need proof that it wasn't random teenage conflict. I click on a subfolder labeled Tommy Vega, Incidents. 43 separate files appear, each one dated and cataloged with forensic precision. Photos of threatening notes left in Danny's locker. Audio recordings of Tommy's friends making explicit threats in the hallway. Even a video of the March 18th locker room incident, shot through a crack in Danny's gym locker. Holy shit, Cousin Beth breathes, forgetting about her children's tender ears. Danny recorded everything. Everything, I confirm. Including the conversations with school administrators who promised to handle things quietly and the meetings with parents who were told their sons were just working through social dynamics. Jenny Martinez is frantically taking notes while her cameraman captures every word. Mr. Henderson, are you saying the school district actively covered up evidence of systematic harassment that led to multiple student deaths? I'm saying, I reply, that Danny spent his last 3 months of life trying to get adults to take his situation seriously. When that failed, he decided to create a permanent record that couldn't be dismissed or buried. Henderson slumps against the wall like his strings have been cut. Marcus, please. The statute of limitations doesn't apply to ongoing criminal conspiracy, Jenny Martinez interjects. If district officials knew about the harassment and failed to report it, if they actively concealed evidence of student endangerment, that's a federal case. The community center has gone completely silent except for Mom's quiet sobbing and the whir of news cameras. 23 family members who came to celebrate my recovery are instead witnessing the systematic dismantling of everything they thought they knew about Danny's final months. Tommy makes one last desperate attempt at damage control. Even if Danny was having problems at school, that doesn't mean that you're responsible for what happened on Miller's Hill. I finish his sentence. You're right, Tommy. Danny made his own choice that morning. But you spent 3 years making sure he felt like he had no other options. The clock on the wall reads 2:17 p.m. 14 minutes into what was supposed to be my miraculous recovery, and instead we're holding a public trial for my brother's memory. Danny would have loved every second of it. The video evidence plays on the lobby screen for exactly 93 seconds before Tommy Vega breaks completely. Not the controlled breakdown of someone caught in a lie, but the primal collapse of a man watching his carefully constructed adult life crumble in real time. Stop it, he shouts, lunging toward the laptop. Turn it off, turn it all off. Uncle Jim catches him before he reaches the equipment, holding him in place while Danny's recorded voice continues. March 19, 2009. Tommy cornered me after chemistry class today. Said if I kept running to teachers like a little girl, he'd make sure I had something real to cry about. That's enough, Dad says suddenly, his voice cutting through the chaos. But he's not talking to me, he's talking to Tommy. Marcus, show them the rest. I stare at my father in shock. For 15 years, he's been the primary architect of our family's silence, the one who insisted we move forward rather than dwelling on painful truths. Now he's asking me to expose more. Dad? Show them Danny's final video, he says, his voice steady despite the tears streaming down his face. The one from March 21st. The one your mother and I found on his computer but never told anyone about. The lobby goes dead silent. Even Jenny Martinez stops scribbling notes. Mom's sedated eyes widen with horror. Richard, no. We agreed. We agreed to protect the dead boy's privacy, Dad interrupts. But our son isn't the one who needs protecting anymore. My hands shake as I navigate to Danny's final video file, dated March 21st, 2009, 11:52 p.m. I've watched it exactly once, the day I found his computer hidden in our basement. It's the reason I chose silence over speech, the moment I realized that sometimes truth is too heavy for words. Danny made this video 5 hours before he went to Miller's Hill, I announced to the room. Mom and Dad found it 3 days after the funeral but decided the family wasn't ready to hear it. Henderson tries one last intervention. Marcus, some things should remain private. Private? I turn to face him with 15 years of accumulated rage. You mean like the disciplinary meetings you never scheduled? Like the parent conferences you never requested? Like the police reports you convinced my parents not to file? Tommy stops struggling against Uncle Jim's grip, his face cycling through panic, anger, and something that almost looks like resignation. You don't understand what high school was like back then. Everyone was dealing with stuff. Not everyone was dealing with death threats, I snap. Not everyone had their head held underwater while 30 kids watched. Not everyone spent their junior year afraid to use the bathroom because they might not make it out conscious. I click play on Danny's final video. My brother's face fills the screen, older than his 17 years, eyes red from crying but voice remarkably steady. If you're watching this, it means I went through with my plan. I want everyone to know that what happens tomorrow morning isn't about weakness or giving up. It's about making a statement that adults will finally have to hear. Mom's pharmaceutical calm cracks completely. She doubles over in her chair, sobbing with the kind of raw grief that comes from hearing your dead child's voice explain his reasoning for leaving you. I tried telling Mom and Dad 12 different times about what was happening at school, video Danny continues. Showed them bruises, showed them threatening notes, even brought home witnesses who saw what Tommy and his friends were doing. Every time, they told me to ignore it, fight back, or stop being so dramatic about normal teenage problems. Aunt Sarah releases Tommy's arm like he's made of poison. You son of a bitch, she whispers. Our boy was crying for help, and you made sure no one would listen. I documented everything, Danny's voice continues from the speakers. Not because I thought anyone would care while I was alive, but because maybe, if something permanent happens to me, people will finally understand that words have consequences. That ignoring someone's pain doesn't make it disappear. The video timer shows 43 seconds remaining. 43 more seconds of my brother explaining why death felt safer than another day at Jefferson High School. Jenny Martinez gestures to her cameraman, who's been recording everything. Mr. Henderson, are you willing to go on record about what your family discovered after Daniel's death? Yes, Dad says without hesitation. It's time Danny's story was told completely. Tommy Vega starts crying, ugly, desperate sobs that sound nothing like grief and everything like fear of consequences finally catching up. The intervention has become a reckoning, exactly as I planned it would be. Danny's final video ends at 2:31 p.m. with words that will haunt this room forever. I hope my death teaches the adults in my life to listen to the next kid who asks for help. Maybe then something good can come from all this pain. The silence that follows lasts exactly 17 seconds before Tommy Vega collapses into Uncle Jim's arms, not from physical restraint but from the weight of 15 years of suppressed guilt finally crushing him. I was 17, he sobs. I was just a stupid kid who didn't know. You knew, I interrupt, my voice steady and clear. You knew exactly what you were doing every single day for 3 years. The question is, what are you going to do about it now? Jenny Martinez steps forward, her camera crew capturing every moment. Mr. Vega, are you willing to provide a statement about your role in Daniel Henderson's harassment? Tommy looks around the room at 23 faces staring back at him with varying degrees of disgust and rage. Yes. I'll tell you everything. All of it. Henderson, who has been silent through Danny's video, finally speaks up. There's more. The other families, the Chens, the Morrisons, the Williams family, they deserve to know their children weren't isolated incidents either. Mom rises unsteadily from her chair, the sedatives making her movements deliberate but her voice surprisingly clear. Marcus, why now? Why today, in front of everyone? Because Danny deserved to have his story heard, I answer. Because 3 other kids died while the same people who failed him continued failing others. Because 15 years of silence was enough. Dad walks over to the projection screen where Danny's desktop is still visible, 127 files of evidence our family kept hidden while publicly mourning an accident that was anything but accidental. We thought we were protecting his memory, Dad says to the room. Thought the stigma would be worse than the truth. We were wrong about everything. Dr. Brennan, who has been unusually quiet during this entire revelation, finally finds his voice. Marcus, I need to apologize. I should have recognized that your silence was communicative, not pathological. You were trying to tell us something important, and I medicalized your message instead of listening to it. Apology accepted, I say. But I'll be sending recordings of our sessions to the state licensing board. Other kids shouldn't have to waste years in therapy because their doctors are more interested in billable hours than actual healing. Jenny Martinez closes her notebook with a snap that sounds like a gavel. Mr. Henderson, would you be willing to provide copies of Daniel's documentation for our investigation? I look around the room one final time, at Tommy Vega confessing his crimes to a news camera, at Henderson finally accepting responsibility for his failures, at my parents confronting 15 years of denial and grief. At 23 family members who came expecting a celebration and instead witnessed the truth that our family needed to hear. Danny left specific instructions about what should happen to his evidence if he didn't survive high school, I announce. He wanted it donated to anti-bullying organizations so other kids wouldn't have to document their own torture just to be believed. The community center slowly empties over the next hour, but not before every single person in that room understands that Danny Henderson didn't die in a bike accident on Miller's Hill. He died from 3 years of systematic cruelty that adults chose to ignore until it was too late. As I pack up Danny's computer, Mom approaches me with clear eyes for the first time in 15 years. Will you come home for dinner Sunday? She asks. We have a lot to talk about. Yes, I say, using my voice freely for the first time since March 22, 2009. I think we finally do.